IEM Highlights is a new series starting with this video to introduce you to new, or new to me, music that I am enjoying with my IEMs. IEMs provide a unique experience of recorded music. The music is happening in your head, between your ears, with some psychoacoustic impression, or maybe psychoacoustic illusion, of a larger or smaller space surrounding your head, or of you being in a larger or smaller space with the music. Some music and some recordings, but not all music and not all recordings, seem to really come alive when you listen with IEMs. To a certain extent, what I say here will apply to headphones as well, but IEMs and headphones are subtly different. I do 90% of my listening with IEMs, only occasionally picking up my headphones when I simply cannot stand anything physically stuck in my ears for the rest of the day. Of course, the usual disclaimers about musical taste apply here. Mine might not be yours. No apologies. If I find and highlight something you like, then great. If not, well, at least I tried. I'll put a bit more about what I listen to, along with some info about my listening habits and the equipment I use, in the description to each of these highlight videos. The first IEM highlight is Eartheana by Gandalf, released this year to celebrate the artist's 70th birthday, and new within the past few weeks on streaming services. I might not be saying Eartheana correctly, but that's as close as I can come. I've been a Tolkien fan since the mid-60s, in my undergrad days, during the first wave of Tolkien rediscovery, when the books first came out in paperback in the U.S. and swept through college campuses all across the country. I think many of us wanted to be Gandalf. I even grew a beard, never really long enough, and bought a black cape coat and a floppy hat. I think I even carried something like a staff for a while. I can remember the day I decided it was all too pretentious for a 20-something and shaved off my beard and put the coat away. In my 70s, I've grown a bit more into the part. My regrown beard, which I've had for more than 40 years now, is white, though still not long enough. And I do carry a monopod hiking stick that looks a bit like a wizard's staff and wear a floppy bush hat when I'm taking photos in the field. But every time I listen to Gandalf's music, I have to wonder in passing, considering what has happened to the Tolkien legacy since the early 80s, if Hans Strobel has come to regret his choice of stage name. Strobel is an Austrian musician and composer with a large New Age following. He's been recording since 1981, maybe the second wave of Tolkien rediscovery, and has over 35 albums to his name, including EPs and compilations. He's completely self-taught and plays a wide variety of instruments, from guitar to piano to sitar and percussion, and some woodwinds, if I'm not mistaken, in there somewhere. He is known for blending sampled and electronic instruments played from a keyboard with various acoustic instruments, often into something approaching symphonic compositions. He has, in at least one interview, called what he does soundscapes. For Eartheana and his 70th birthday, Gandalf spent 2 years in his hometown studios, not only composing and arranging and orchestrating all the music, but playing all the instruments himself, with the exception of Marika Hilmar's cello on several tracks, and a violin violist on one track. Eartheana is Gandalf at his best, with intricately woven themes and melodic lines, often borrowed from various world cultures, as you might guess from the name of the album, but always founded, grounded on his piano and keyboards, and resolving eventually and quite often into his signature elegant and moving electric guitar riffs with lots of pedal effects. And then there's the way he uses percussion. Drums and hand percussion, again often native-flavored to match the theme of the album, move each piece forward, setting and driving the rhythm, but also underscoring the emotion of each passage. Always listen carefully to the drums and percussion. And Gandalf has, at least in this album, a special love of chimes and cymbals, which come in and add sparkle in surprising and delightful ways. It might be a cliché to say it, but Gandalf uses individual instruments and sounds and themes as brushes to create the sonic equivalent of a panoramic landscape painting. You can feel the pull of the brush against the texture of the silence, his canvas, in the timbre of brass and woodwinds, in the rasp of the cello bow and the deep lion's purr of the cello body, and always in the soaring whine of his electric guitar effects. Then he paints in detail with acoustic guitar or bouzouki, flute or oboe, or light electronic sounds, filling out the background with synthetic brass and sometimes choir effects. Finally, he adds the highlights with chimes and cymbals, just a delicate touch of gold and silver along the edges of the themes with the finest of brushes. If you have never envisioned musical instruments as brushes, give it a try and immerse yourself in the world Gandalf is painting for your ears. If you want to give yourself and your IEMs a challenge, listen for those chimes track by track and the lightest touches of silver and gold along the edges of the strokes. Depending on your IEM, the soundscapes are wide and deep and enveloping, with something new, some new twist or juxtaposition coming in, opening new space, highlighting a new section of the canvas, often enough to keep both your ear and your mind engaged. Despite the album name and the ethnic and regional titles of the main tracks, cultural themes are handled with a light touch, maybe a melody here, an instrumental choice there, a distinctive sound or tuning or rhythm, but these are more homage to place and culture than they are any attempt to recreate or to appropriate the music of any particular time and space. If there is a musical message here, it is not, to my ear and mind, so much an exploration of the music of different cultures and peoples as it is the discovery that all music is one music, and all cultures are one human culture, as our world is one world, as we are all one people, and that we show our appreciation of the music of others as we make it part of our own. As you listen to these tracks, notice the recurring structure. Gandalf takes simple themes and builds out on them, laying layer on layer, increasing the weave and the complexity and often volume until it becomes really intense, symphonic, and then suddenly collapses it back to the simple themes with perhaps different instruments, and then builds out again. He might do this several times in an extended piece. As an example, listen to South America, across the Andes. It begins with a definite call to place and time, with drums and panpipes and hand percussion, laying down a foundation. Then synthesized and sampled keyboard sounds build layer on layer until the brass comes in. An oboe takes up the lead, powered by a strong clapping rhythm towards crescendo, and then suddenly everything collapses back to oboe and strings. Builds a little until the Spanish-flavored electric guitar cuts through, laying crystalline note by note like feet dancing up a mountain forest path, only to be overtaken and overlaid by the haunting cello theme, until the oboe and guitar and cello rejoin, conversing, weaving in and out, and now again, layer by layer, the soundscape builds until that driving rhythm of clapping hands comes back in over a brass section, building to a climax. And don't miss the decaying echoes at the very end. It requires a fine IEM to keep the various themes and instruments clear, to let them weave without covering or obscuring each other until the very end, and then those echoes carry us out. Eartheana is an ambitious work to celebrate a talented musician's sense of space and time here on our shared planet. It's not light listening, but with good IEMs, it will reward the hour and a bit you spend with it, taking you repeatedly to the edge of too much joy, too much sonic splendor, snatching you back and taking you there again. And happy birthday, Gandalf.